Hey, welcome to the code experiment video for today. Today we were able to read the contents of a file using the open function and the readlines method as well. And Python is able to find the file using this file name, todos.txt. So we simply give the name of the file here. And that is the case when the file is located in the project root directory. So the root directory is app1 and todos is under that directory. But if todos was in another folder, for example, if I drag todos and drop it in another folder, let's create a folder first. Let's name it files. So files now is inside app1 and todos.txt will be dragged and dropped inside files. Now, when I press refactor here, you'll see that the path here of this file will be changed by PyCharm automatically. So take a look here how it will change when I press refactor. You see, it changed from todos.txt to files/todos.txt. So all the files, the file paths changed to that. So that was done automatically by PyCharm. If PyCharm didn't do that, we would have to write this manually. So files/todos.txt, because otherwise, if this was just todos.txt and this as well, and the other ones also, and we run the code and we try to add something. So case add now doesn't have the file slash part. So if I press add and I try to add a to-do such as buy fruits, we're going to get an error, and the error says file not found error. No such file or directory todos.txt. So, because todos is in another folder, you have to give the relative path to that folder, and the relative path is files/todos. Again here, files/todos. So that is a relative path, and it is relative to the project root directory, which in my case is app1. App1 is located somewhere in my computer. Maybe C/users, ardit, app1, etc. It doesn't matter. The absolute path here doesn't matter. All these files can be referenced using relative paths from within Python. So if we have, for example, another folder inside files, so let's create a new one, subfiles, and drag todos.txt to subfiles, press refactor, and PyCharm again will change the path to files subfiles todos.txt using slashes to separate directories from directories and directories from files. It could also happen that you may need to point to a file which is outside of the project root directory. In that case, you'd have to use an absolute path, and I'll show you how to do that now. The only thing is that the process is different between Mac, Linux, and Windows. So for that, I'll show you now my Windows computer on top and my Mac computer at the bottom half. The instructions for Mac will also be valid for Linux users. So the instructions for Windows, that's the Windows computer. And let's suppose that you had a file in your downloads folder. The file name is todos. It also has an extension .txt, but Windows doesn't show it. However, the actual file name is todos.txt. Now, you want to click here and copy that path. That is the absolute path you need to provide now in Python. I don't want to pollute my app here, so I'll just open a Python console. So again, we would use open, the function open, and inside the codes you'd paste that directory, and then you'd add another backslash, so not a slash on Windows but a backslash, todos.txt. And then you want to go to the beginning of the string outside the quotes and add R. I'm adding R here because we have backslashes on Windows, and that means some characters are special characters in Python. For example, \t creates a tab. If you remember, \n was also a special character. It created a break line. So when you say print \n, you get a break line. If you say print \t, you get a tab. For that reason, we want to change this to a row string by adding R just before the quotes. And that will treat every character as a normal character. It will ignore special characters. And then add the R argument and press enter. If you got an error, probably you may need to add another .txt here, because perhaps when you created the file you manually added a .txt, but then Windows adds another one on top of that, so you end up with this file name actually. So try to execute this and see if it works. You know it works when this doesn't give you any output, and you also know it works when you apply the read method and you get the content of that file, which is in my downloads folder. So that's the file. So that was how to read an absolute file on Windows. On Mac and Linux, let's suppose we have this file, todos.txt, which is in the downloads folder. So you may see it like that, but if you press this view option in here, you're gonna be able to trace where the directory comes from. So you get users AS and downloads todos.txt. So that means the path is file is open, the path is /, we're using forward slashes here. On Windows you need to use backslashes, here you use forward normal slashes. Users AS and downloads /todos.txt. Press enter, file.read gives me the content of that file. So you need to change this to your username, so you need to actually be able to get the actual path on your own computer. And that's how you read absolute paths on Windows and Mac or Linux. So Mac and Linux use forward slashes. So those were some code experiments on file paths. I hope you understand them better. As I mentioned, most of the time you're gonna have the files in your project directory, so you'll not have to bother with absolute paths, just relative paths. So thank you, see you later.